Sunday night edition of the Crash the Pond podcast. This is a special podcast today, folks. We've got plenty to discuss. Exciting things happened this week in the world of the Anaheim Ducks. Jamie Drysdale and Trevor Zegras scoring their first NHL goals. But there's a couple things I want to point out that are of importance and are special today. First off, we've got CJ on the show. So it's a three-man pod, which doesn't always happen.
Full line.
What's up?
Full line here.
Welcome back. And also something that I can say today that I can only say once a year. And so it's my pleasure to say to both of you, happy National French Bread Day. Yes, indeed. Today's National French Bread Day. And I thought that was worth pointing out.
I was trying to figure out where the hell you were going to go with that. And I'm pretty happy that it went there, to be honest.
I am so glad we are together for this momentous occasion.
Tomorrow, get ready, because by the time you're listening to this, I guess in observance of the fact that most people will be listening to this tomorrow, Monday, the 22nd of March, happy National Bavarian Crepes Day to all of you, because that is Monday's holiday.
That seems way too specific. Way too
Bavarian
specific.
crepes. Who knew? Who knew that there were Bavarian crepes?
We gotta hold off on all of this, on all of these holidays that are being set out there. It's got to be like a National Crepe Day, sure. National Bavarian crepe. Too much.
I think this is an old man yells at cloud moment from you, Jake. There's too many holidays. Too many.
Yeah.
Back in
Felix,
my day,
are you
we
in?
just had Christmas, Thanksgiving, and New Year's.
Felix, are you in if we can just completely annoy Jake in the group chat and have me every morning ask you what national day it is? Let's just keep track of it. Let's do it.
It is pretty funny that annoys you.
I mean, it doesn't really.
Especially because, you're always celebrating holidays, it feels like. So
What?
I don't know.
That was not true, but random, weird. But
is that a dig on him being Jewish?
It could be.
Here's the question. I think it was on our Patreon episode yesterday. You threw the call out to me that I need to come up with more bits again. I think we found a bit for you at the start of each podcast saying what the national holiday is.
No, this was intentional. I planned this. This is my bit. I agree with you. Also, tomorrow is National West Virginia Day, which is
West
wild.
Virginia.
Why does West Virginia get a day? I mean, now I'm hoping I'm not offending anybody that listens to us in West Virginia. I don't think there are. I look at the analytics here.
There might be one or two.
There might be one or two, at most.
Hello to our fan in West Virginia.
Yeah. Also, tomorrow is National Goof Off Day. So if you're trying to goof off, make sure to do it tomorrow.
We do that every day.
Don't worry, folks. We will get to Drysdale and Zegras eventually.
All right. We should probably cut that short here. So I guess it's kind of hard to figure out where to start here, but I think the place that we should start for two things. One, because like Jake said before the show, it kind of leads into the Drysdale debut. And also we can just kind of get it out of the way early. So the Ducks' first game this week, they lost 8-4 to the Colorado Avalanche, which the only real memorable part of the night was the fact that the Ducks finally wore their reverse retro jerseys. So Jake, I know because we did a watch along that you were very excited about that.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't know if I had ever been as excited for a game as I was for that one. Let me rephrase that. I don't know if I had been that excited for a Ducks game in the past, 2 or 3 years, because I just saw the warm-ups, and I mean, this may sound goofy.
You were like a kid in the candy shop.
I was I wanted to shed a tear. I did probably shed a tear, honestly, because it's just seeing those jerseys. And here's the thing. Jerseys, absolutely beautiful, absolutely fun. I love the jersey. I have it. I don't think I would want to see that jersey 20, 30 times throughout the season. I think 6 times it would be the perfect amount for that type of jersey. That's a fun, goofy, cartoonish type of thing. But here's the reason why I think that jersey really struck a chord with me and why it really caused that emotional reaction from me was seeing those colors. Because, we've seen those colors over the past, since 05-06. So what would that be? 15 years. Over the past 15 years, we've seen that color scheme, that exact color scheme with those pants one time. One time during the 20th anniversary season, we saw them wear that exact color scheme with those pants. And it was watching that game when I remember just how amazing those colors, the eggplant, the jade, and the white, work together. And just how much of a difference I think that makes. And it reminds me that this is the team's identity. Like this is the foundation of the organization. And I think it's a shame that they don't kind of go to those colors more often, to be honest. And that was what hit me the most, seeing those colors on the ice.
CJ, you are the resident proponent, I guess, that you are the leader of the orange and black fan club. I think you have been the one in recent years to push back on the notion that eggplant and jade is better. So how was your experience with these reverse retros?
So what I will say is that I no longer consider myself the leader of that movement.
Wow. You're disavowing it. Interesting.
I kind of
backing off.
Let's put it this way: I was never a super proponent of it, but I was a defender of it for a number of years.
Yes, that was the word I was looking for.
Honestly, I was probably in that boat.
But here's the thing, though: I feel like by defending it, you kind of are a proponent, though. Like, isn't it hard to separate those two?
Felix, if we want to have a half-hour like philosophical discussion on the differences of those two, we will. I'm not going to do that right now.
Fair enough.
Gaslight.
Fair enough.
No, I think the biggest thing for me is that as time has gone on, I've kind of almost recognized, like, I still don't hate the colors, but I am on board with the take that it's boring now. Like, it's a boring set of colors. I am on Jake's side, where I'm a fan of the orange. Big surprise, I've got the orange. I do like the orange setup, but as time has gone along, and I think as we're also seeing sort of nostalgia really start to take over the market on like everything, like 90s nostalgia right now is huge. And you have more and more people, because millennials and the people who grew up in the 90s are now becoming the dominant consumers and purchasers, right? So it's becoming back in style. Because you have to remember, the entire reason why the Samuelis ditched that color scheme and that logo for the current stuff is that they wanted to grow up. They wanted to separate themselves. They wanted to be a grown-up hockey team. The Mighty Ducks by the Walt Disney Company were honestly considered to be like a marketing kids scheme, really,
Mickey
right
Mouse.
by their own admission, basically. Yeah, they were a Mickey Mouse team.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you think back in the day, a lot of the discourse among the traditional NHL people were that they didn't take the Ducks seriously because they were like, oh, they're marketing, they're a tool. That was a big criticism of them. Now that criticism no longer really exists, because the nostalgia is back. We've seen what bringing out, like, for the 20th anniversary, this reverse retro, we've seen what that does. And I think now we're just in a different time to where the eggplant and jade and teal and the eggplant and jade and everything like that.
Teal, careful.
Sorry,
not teal.
Sharks.
It is not teal.
Jake will hunt you down.
I'm colorblind. You know what? I'm colorblind.
What was it? Sorry, John Aller said aqua at the beginning.
He said
aqua at the beginning of the broadcast, and I'm like,
okay,
you worked for the team when they wore eggplant and jade. How do you not know?
I actually think officially it is aqua, like in the actual, like, whatever
the official team is wrong. We are right. That's everybody.
I'm pretty sure I've heard that before somewhere. And I mean, Allers is employed by the team, so.
So what I will say though is that, like, now I think that it very much would be, I think, in the Ducks' interest to really embrace their past a lot more, because we've been seeing a lot more teams do that, not even outside of the reverse retros. Like the Canucks have brought back their old flying skate blade jersey, right? We've seen the Calgary Flames do some stuff with some of their retro stuff. We've seen that through a lot of teams now, and I think you're at a point now where you can get away with it as this great branding. And I think just the main reason why it would be good to embrace that more is just the fact that it's unique, right? Like the Ducks, black, orange, so many teams do that kind of thing. The eggplant and jade, oh man, that is so unique.
Nobody else has it. I mean, that's the big thing there, is it gives them an identity. And like I like the orange and black. I've never had any issues with it. My main issue is just more the jerseys that they have now, like the home and away, are just they've just outlasted kind of their shelf life, I think, a little bit. Or I guess they're past their expiration date. They were cool at first when they first introduced the third jersey that's now the home jersey, but it's kind of just, it's a little too funky, a little too cluttered to be like a true home jersey. So I would just like them to really go back to if they made their home, their current third jersey their home, but like a black version of it, a little less loud, and then you just make the orange the third still, I think that would be fine already. just get away from the Web D as the main logo.
The Web D is a secondary logo.
Yeah, like
I like the WebD logo, but I agree.
I like it. I like it too. I have no issues with it. It's just like you have the Mighty Duck logo. It's one of the most popular and unique logos in sports. Like, use it.
Anyone, if you are anywhere in the world and you are wearing a Mighty Ducks logo, people know what that is. CJ's showing.
I mean,
his
look at my tattoo.
Right. Yeah, and, like, people
know
different,
but the Mighty Duck Foundation.
Yeah. People know what that is. If you show people the Web D logo, people aren't necessarily going to know what that is, and I think that's the biggest difference from a marketability, from all this different type of standpoint. And I think they should go back to eggplant and jade as the main colors. I think maybe if you want to leave the orange jersey as a third jersey, I think it works well as like as an ode to Orange County jersey.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I like the kind of local, synergy there. I think that's cool. Anyway, this took a wild turn to just pure jersey talk, but that's what happens. The Ducks wore the reverse retro. We need to talk about it. But yeah, I just thought that they look so gorgeous. I mean, like you said, with the equipment, that I'm glad that they actually got, full on pants and gloves, and they didn't just have their black gloves and black pants. They went all in on it. And, like Miller's pads looked amazing, and the masks, like, John Gibson's mask, Stolar's, Miller, they all looked great. So just awesome. And I actually like these better in the white, I think, than the original jersey, which is eggplant. Yeah. Or jade. Sorry, jade with the white shoulders. I actually prefer this because some of the reverse retros, like, you basically just end up coming away thinking, I actually prefer the original better. But this is an actual improvement on that. So we will see. Now, in this game, though, just to kind of touch on the game, it was let's call it a victory for the Whipping Boys, even though the Ducks lost this game, and they were up 4-2 after the first period, which was really the last time that anything good happened for them. I mean, the guys who have been in the doghouse of Dallas Aikens all season long kind of took it to him a little bit. I mean, Troy Terry scored the first goal of the night, assist there for Zegras and Henrique. Danton Heinen got on the board. Henrique scored a goal. Terry the assist there, and then Derek Grant getting on the board as well in not the kind of fashion that he's used to on a penalty shot, but outside of Grant, a big victory there for the Whipping Boys, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we've talked about it a bunch with Troy Terry actually being much better than the Ducks were ever giving him credit for. And I mean, he continued to show that in this game. This wasn't a good game for the Ducks necessarily at 5-on-5, but the Zegras and Terry line, and I'm trying to remember, I think that this was the first game where those guys actually got paired together. So this was the formation of that line. And I mean, this was a bad game for the Ducks from a 5v5 perspective and expected goals. And that's partially due to the Avalanche just being really, really good. But Zegras and Terry were the only line above 50% expected goals for, and they were significantly above it, 75.64 expected goals for percentage. So I know some people wanted to drive home the narrative. Well, Troy Terry was able to score on Hunter Miska. Danton Heinen scored on Hunter Miska it was Zegras and Henrique on the ice with them, and really trying to drive home that those 4 goals came against an AHL quality goalie. And while, yes, that is true, and that does play a part in the fact that the goals went in, that doesn't change the fact that when those guys were on the ice, the Ducks got the better of the chances. They were the only line even close to having that happen over the course of the night. And I think that's the important part here. It wasn't as if they were getting outplayed and they just got lucky with a couple bounces against a bad goalie.
Yeah, and also Troy Terry just as a whole is a
good player.
Is just a positive impact player, and he's still not really that great offensively, but when you look at like his RAPM chart, but the way that he suppresses quality against, it still allows the Ducks to control the game when he's out there. Like, I was listening to the PDO cast over the weekend with Jack Hahn as a guest, and he was talking about like how the Leafs play. They played for control of the game. Essentially, you want to play in a way that you're going to be able to establish whatever pace, whatever style that you want. And with Troy Terry out there, the Ducks are able to get into their flow much more easily because he's responsible defensively and he's able to transition the puck up ice and get it to his teammates. So that's already more than you can ask for. And if you compare his impact to other guys who have gotten no criticism at all, I mean, it is pretty startling the difference there in the discourse.
Yeah.
I think Troy Terry is a perfect example of the kind of player where you have to be very careful when grading a player by pure like points, right? Goals, assists, offensive production. And it's completely fair to say that, yeah, he hasn't exactly panned out offensively, maybe the way the Ducks would have liked him to. He still has some great offensive plays. Like, I still think he has definitely, like, he shows those flashes of offensive skill, but where his value is right now at the moment is, as you said, Jake, is to be able to get the puck back and transition it towards them going up ice. And so many people don't realize the value in that to a hockey team, especially to a hockey team that is as bad defensively as the Ducks and gives up so many chances. Having Terry on the ice immediately gives the Ducks an advantage in terms of transitioning the puck back towards the offensive zone. So he's definitely one of these guys that you need to look at a lot of other metrics, and we try to share those metrics, but he's one of those cautionary tales of, look, if you just look at his point production, you're probably going to be disappointed and you're going to miss out on a lot of the other value that he brings.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that it is kind of odd that he has this big expectation of producing points, because he was a 5th round pick. Like, why is the bar set so ridiculously high for a 5th round pick? Whereas, with Sam Steele, you knew I was going to find a way to mix in a Sam Steele.
You always bring in
Here
Sam
we go.
Steele.
I'm after Sam Steele.
Here we go.
You have a vendetta against him now. I'm like convinced.
It's not even a vendetta against him, because I don't have vendettas against players. It's just that I have a vendetta against the narrative that Sam Steele is like this kind of unimpeachable, responsible two-way center, that, he wins a lot of face-offs, this and that. Like, he has been arguably the Ducks' worst player this season. Like, I think he's in the Derek Grant category. And so, but you don't really hear about that. Like, you don't hear him get discussed that way. I should also mention that Sam Steele did not play in this game. This was actually, I don't think he had been scratched in the game prior, and he would not play the rest of the week. Yeah. So it is kind of interesting that with, Zegras coming up a little bit and establishing himself, and I mean, Danton Heinen scoring a goal, it's just interesting that Steele is a bit on the outside looking in right now of who Dallas Eakins is giving the nod to.
Yeah. I think to kind of put a bow on this game, though, this was not a good performance from the Ducks overall.
No, they were awful. We've basically focused on the two good things, Troy Terry and the jerseys.
Yeah, exactly. This was a poor performance by the Ducks. It was outside of they were okay in the first period. They kind of held their own in the first perion. They were the worst of the two teams, but they at least generated stuff.
They were okay in the first period.
Yeah, and then
when I tweeted on the night of the game that that there was basically nothing good about that game except the jerseys, and people are like, oh well, how could you ignore the first period? It's like, yeah, well, they got outchanced, they got outshot, they got outshot attempted. Like, yeah, they got 4 goals, which is great and shouldn't completely overlook that, but they didn't really play that well.
Yeah, they definitely didn't. And I think that, I mean, we should definitely also mention this. The Colorado Avalanche are probably the best team in the league. Like, they are probably
spicy.
the best team in the league. They're the best at 5-on-5 and expected goals for percentage.
Very spicy.
They're very good on the power play, very good on the penalty kill. The one kind of issue they have is potentially goaltending. And once Philip Grubauer came in, that kind of got resolved for them, because Hunter Miska is not a good goalie. And so once that happened, the Colorado Avalanche were able to take over, and this may have been a little bit of regression to the mean based upon how the Ducks were able to get results against the Avalanche earlier on in the year, when the Avalanche probably deserved a little bit more. And so overall, I mean, this game defensively was a complete and total mess for the Ducks.
It was a disaster.
Absolute disaster. Yep. No defenseman above 50% expected goals for percentage. The top two were Kevin Shattenkirk and Josh Maher at 36 and 34%. Jacob Larson at 23%. Ben Hutton at 17%. Yanni Hakanpää at 14%. Cam Fowler at 18%. So nobody in the good range for the defense. And so that was a big issue. And I think that kind of, Felix, you mentioned it at the top of this. The reason why looking at this game is somewhat important to get out of the way is that it informed what happened in the future. The Ducks were really bad defensively. And Eric Stevens even asked the question, I think to Dallas Eakins, about the Larson-Hutton pairing specifically, and about them not being good enough in the post-game press conference. And Dallas Eakins mentioned that they hadn't been of late. And I think that really informed what happened next, which was Jamie Drysdale has been a guy was put on the taxi squad over the weekend, I believe, was when he was put on the taxi squad because the goal, or maybe it was Monday, because the goals were not going to be playing again until Saturday night. And
well, I think he traveled with the Ducks.
He traveled with the Ducks to Colorado. He was on the taxi squad. They put him on the taxi squad, I think, to practice with the team. Bob Murray had come out and said he wants to potentially get him in a game.
That's the thing, is when people were saying, oh, he's, because there was the whole thing last week about how this isn't to have him play because he's just there to practice and be in meetings. And it's like, well, what's the point of all that if he's never going to play for the Ducks? Like, it was pretty clear to me that he was going to eventually play.
Yeah.
And, of course, I got a little backlash for saying that I didn't really fully believe that whole narrative. And here we are. So anyway.
Well, remember, again,
another victory for me.
Remember, I say this over and over and over again, and I cannot stress this enough. Approximately, or I would say at least 50% of things that come out of a general manager's mouth are complete horseshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Live by that rule and you'll never be disappointed.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like, yes, that can be true, but that, like, what he said wasn't untrue. It's just, it
didn't make sense.
It's not even that it didn't make sense. It was just only partially part of the picture.
Yeah,
it was incomplete.
If he got hit in the face and they wanted him to practice with the Ducks as a result to put on weight, he got hit in the face with the puck, and they want basically
he lost the weight. He had to put weight. It's like, no, you want him to play for you. Like, just say it.
Yeah,
it's okay to just say it.
He did get sent back down after that, and then played some games for the goals, and then got called back up.
Yeah,
you're correct. He was called up and the specific wording I think Eric Stevens had was that he was practicing with the team and taking full part in meetings.
Yeah, okay, so I remember this. I remember having an issue with all this narrative, and you even agreeing with them.
What?
And saying that I was wrong, that they weren't grooming him to play.
Didn't I put out a tweet that you agree? I'm pretty sure I put. So here was my logic on that. I think he got hit in the face, and I think that there was an injury there. Maybe he lost weight. And so that may have been the initial reason that they called him up.
So the night that report came out, I was still adamant that they want him to play, regardless of all of this. And you were a bit more on the side of, well, it could just be that that's how they're going about it.
Yeah,
I think
that's fair. That's fair.
Which I'm not trying to put you on blast, although I kind of am.
Yeah, you 100% are.
I'm sitting over here eating popcorn while you two go at it right now.
I mean, this is per usual for us.
Well, it's just that we are so deep into the minutia of this team that these are like the big issues that we debate over. Like what the reason for a call up was. Anyway.
But regardless, Jamie Drysdale was on the taxi squad, and it came out, I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember which day. It came out that he was going to be getting into the game. I think it was on Thursday. Dallas Aikens had mentioned at the mid-game or the pregame press conference that Jamie Drysdale was going to be in the game.
So I think he got called up that night, the night after the loss to Colorado.
Yeah, he did.
Like that was the report after the fact. But yeah, so I mean, let's just talk about that game. I mean, because that was, to me, even though the Ducks, I don't think played this fantastic kind of complete effort of a game. There were some bumps in the road. It was one of the most exciting Ducks games that I've watched in a very long time, and the big reason for that is that it felt meaningful. Right? There's been so many games this season that have been just complete duds, that have felt like, well, what is the point here? What is the goal of all of this? And that game against the Coyotes on Thursday at Honda Center, it felt like it meant something. Jamie Drysdale picks up his first NHL goal. Trevor Zegras does it, a minute after? And it felt like, okay, the future is here. The next wave of Ducks have arrived. And, whether or not they'll, like, for example, with Drysdale, whether or not they'll stick around the rest of this season, it doesn't even matter. It's the fact that these guys who they are pinning their future hopes on are here and they're contributing, and that's exciting.
Yeah, it's 100% exciting, and I think also, what was it? Ryan Getzlaf had his 700th assist in that game. Ryan Miller picked up?
Ryan Miller passed Hasek on the all-time wins list.
And so, I mean, those I think are a little bit on the back burner in terms of a lot of fans' viewpoints. But I mean,
but still,
this felt like the most meaningful Ducks game in a long time, and I think we were talking. You, me, and CJ were talking in our chat afterwards a little bit, and I think you said it, that I was kind of like buzzing, like I was high off of that game.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah, you really were.
And I think
you
I
were,
was.
You were texting me until like midnight about just factoids about the game.
Because I went back and watched different things about it, because there were so many different like things in that game that I think were so fun to watch, specifically when it comes to Zegras and Drysdale. And here was the thing. I don't really know what I expected out of Jamie Drysdale coming into this, because at the end of the day, to temper expectations, but he's 18 years old. And 18-year-old defensemen don't make the jump to the NHL and look good that often. Like, even the guys that make the jump right away don't always look great in their initial performance. Mm-hmm. Jamie Drysdale looked exactly like he belonged in the NHL.
He looked how he looked in junior.
Yeah,
like he looked like he was playing in junior.
He was,
but in a good way.
Like, this is not trying to be over the top or anything like that, but he was hyperbolic. The best. Hyperbolic. But he was the best defenseman on the Ducks on Thursday night.
Like there is a statistical case to be made there.
Yeah. And you instantly saw the impact that he had. I mean, I'll have my 5 takeaways coming out, and there's going to be some video in that actually this time around where you'll be able to see kind of his defensive acumen. But it wasn't just his ability in the offensive zone, which he showed when he scored his goal with. I mean, there was the chip off the wall to himself and the ability to walk the line, and that was kind of what he was hyped up as in junior hockey, as his offensive ability, his creativity in the offensive line. But or in the offensive zone, but it was also his ability in the defensive zone. He had a couple of shifts in the defensive zone where he just, through good gap control, shut things down before they could happen, and instantly was able to get away from pressure and used his skating to his favor, and really didn't look like an 18-year-old in terms of being pressured. Like, he was able to make the right move. Looked like he had played in the league for a very, very long time with some of the moves and the reads he was making, and looked like he was ahead of the play. And you also factor in what he did on the power play. I mean, we saw it in both games, but there was one power play specifically with him and Zegras in this game where it was almost like watching two musicians kind of, you hate this analogy, Felix. I can tell by the look on your face. I've said it a bunch of times, and I feel like you hate it by this point in time. But it's two musicians riffing off of each other with creativity, and that's kind of what it felt like watching Zegras and Drysdale kind of play off of each other. I mean, because at the end of the day, sports are a form of creativity for players to express themselves, and that was what that felt like. Them just having fun out there with the space, feeding off of each other, and it was a treat to see, and something that I think I'm so excited to see how that kind of relationship, how that feeding off each other is able to blossom as the two get more familiar with each other.
Yeah, CJ, what did you think of that night?
What we've seen with both Zegras, but especially with Drysdale in his first game, I think the reason why that game was so fun, just purely outside of the debut of these highly touted prospects, is the fact that you have to realize that Ducks fans have been kind of getting strung along here with prospects for a few years now, right? Like when Sam Steele made it, when Troy Terry made it, when Comtois, when Max Jones, these guys were fairly hyped up within the fan base. And they came in and pretty much all of them immediately struggled. Maybe Comtois, he had like the first goal on his first shot. He had a little bit of that, but there was a lot of these guys who kind of came up and they didn't necessarily match these, quite frankly, unfair expectations that a lot of people had put on them. And this time we see two of the most exciting prospects the Ducks have had since probably Bobby Ryan. Maybe you can go back with Ryan Getzlaf and Corey Perry, even further back to Paul Kariya if you really want to make that leap. That we finally have these two prospects who immediately come in before they turn 20 years old and make a difference. They bring an impact. They bring fun. They bring creativity. They bring a style of hockey that Ducks fans haven't seen in years. And it's pretty clear, obviously, within the past few games that no, these two aren't going to be the sole solution to the Ducks' issues, right? But this was the first time after probably 3 or 4 years of buildup that the Ducks have had, these players come in and immediately make an impact. And we've seen these types of players make impacts on so many other teams. And now the Ducks have these players. And so if nothing else, there's still obviously a long way to go. But like, especially seeing Jamie Drysdale playing like a veteran, like he looked like he was potentially Norris contender for within his first game or two. That is something I think really to be excited about and to really hang your hat on.
Let me know if this is I'm not trying to set expectations too high, and I don't know if maybe I'm a little bit off base here, and it's very possible I am, so take this with a grain of salt. But I don't think there's been a defenseman as good as Jamie Drysdale in a Duck sweater since probably Scott Niedermayer. With the amount of skill that he has, both offensively and defensively, since Scott Niedermayer.
I gotta pull the sample size card out.
No, I agree. I agree.
Card
I agree. I'm just simply saying, in the small sample that we have, I'm trying to get people excited. It's been a bad season. Let me hype them up, CJ. Let me hype them up.
It's Positive Sunday.
Yeah,
it's Positive Sunday. Okay, go ahead.
Wait, would you agree with that?
Well,
as far as
what about Fowler and Lindholm?
Yep, exactly.
Well, I don't think Fowler's that hard to beat. Lindholm is, peak Lindholm was very, very good. So, that's probably the best since Niedermayer.
Not Real Never Was is throwing out Lubomir Visnovsky. Visnovsky was amazing offensively, no doubt. Yeah. But I think defensively is maybe lacked a little bit.
I definitely agree that Drysdale has the potential to be that, though. I think that that's in play. I think that what really stood out to me, and this does kind of beg the question of, maybe it was a good thing that the Ducks kind of they basically they called him up in a way without having him play games for a while, right? Being on the taxi squad, but participating in the meetings and the practices and kind of understanding the system to give him a running start. Now, just seeing how he plays, though, I don't think it would have mattered either way. He's just so talented, but it is interesting. And I will say this, we'll get to Zegras in a little bit here, but I think that game from Drysdale, just his first game alone, was better than any game Zegras has played this season. I think he was better than Zegras at his respective position right away in every facet of the game. Whereas Zegras, it's been hit or miss. And the thing that with Zegras that's kind of tough is that he's been really yanked around by the coaching staff, with the deployment and the kind of puzzling, head scratching benchings at the end of periods. Seems like they've gone away from that a little bit now, but that was he got kind of a weird start to his NHL career, whereas Drysdale just got thrown right into the fire and thrived. Who would have thought? And on a pairing with Ben Hutton that he would come in and thrive right away. So I think that, to me, that it was a bellwether type of performance, because if you're that good right away, you have to be pretty damn good overall, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's really tough to make. I get where you're going with that, but I think that it is tough. He had more unfair to Zegras. He did, but you have to remember too, it's a defenseman too. You don't have nearly as much leeway as a coach to be able to shelter them.
Yeah,
really, you do to some extent. But number one, you're a defenseman. There's less of you out on the ice, so you're going to have to play him a lot more. But number two, as well, as you said, Zegras has been really jerked around by the coaching staff. So it's not necessarily an apples to oranges comparison. You're technically right, but I will say that in his limited time, because remember, if you think back, I remember the game chart that I posted for Zegras' debut. Zegras had an over 80% expected goals percentage. Even though he didn't play a whole lot, he had a phenomenal game. Now, who knows, if you would have played him a lot more and didn't shelter him enough, would he be as good? We don't know. Maybe it probably would have gone down a little bit, but it's difficult to treat the two the same right now. But what I will say is that Drysdale, I'll finish on this, Drysdale, whether because of the coaching staff or not, whether this is fair to the Zegras or not, Drysdale had easily the best debut.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. To your point also on Zegras versus Drysdale debut, I think a forward a winger specifically can be more impacted by the line he's put on, and specifically the center of that line with their defensive ability and different things along those lines, as compared to a defenseman where they're able to impact a game a little bit more and drive their play.
Zegras is not even playing his natural position.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so on top of that, it's Zegras is being in his sheltered minutes and everything like that. So
this wasn't meant as a jab to Zegras. It's just more so that
Felix, why do you hate the Ducks?
It's just that in what we've seen from Zegras, he hasn't had a game like the one that Drysdale had on Tuesday or whatever day, Thursday.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And man, even just looking at the minutes from that game, Zegras Zegras played less than 10 minutes at 5-on-5 in that game.
And he scored a goal. I mean, let's just really quickly break down the two guys' goals because
well, yeah. So the first goal from Drysdale, I mean, not really a whole lot to it. Just walks the line, gets a wrist shot to go through, beats the goalie, and
well, I'm sorry, Felix. I got to do this because I posted this, but like the entire shift leading up to Drysdale's first goal was monster. That was one of the best shifts I've seen from a Ducks defenseman in years.
Yeah, no, his that overall shift was great. Like I mean, just in the power play and the passing and the way that he was helping maintain possession, like that's why I think he's just been more impactful already than Zegras, is because of the way he affects the game in those, in those plays, right? Not just scoring type plays. Because the goal itself was kind of pretty standard, but it was still a nice shot to go through. But really, the first goal that stood out the most of the two has to be Trevor Zegras, though. I mean, a nice zone entry by Troy Terry, little saucer pass that kind of sort of deflects, but still ends up in a perfect position for Zegras. And he's coming in from the left side as a left-handed shot. And where a lot of guys would have probably just gone forehand, backhand to beat the goaltender, he just held it on his forehand and just waited out the goalie and then just dragged it and kept going and just shoveled it into the top of the net, a la Pavel Datsyuk. I mean, it really reminded me of Pavel Datsyuk's famous move in the shootout where he just drags it on the heel of his stick. And Zegras, I mean, he executed it flawlessly, a little different because it was more on the toe. But the level of skill, the level of patience, the level of confidence that you need to have to be able to execute that play with little time and space, it was amazing. And just the whole sequence, even just Troy Terry's setup was something to behold.
Yep. And you're starting to see both Terry and Zegras be able to read off each other. And read off each other and also read off of Adam Henrique. And I mean, it's shocking. Put two highly skilled players with a guy who's able to shoot the puck pretty well, and you're going to find success. It's almost as if this coaching thing and line composition isn't worth overthinking too much and just put some guys together that are good together. That can be good. Well, no, Troy Terry even said it in the Colorado game. He's like, I really like playing with with Adam Henrique.
For the love of God, leave me on this line.
Put good players together.
Yeah,
Jake, I don't know why I never thought of this before. This is groundbreaking.
Don't put Trevor Zegras with Isaac Lundestrom. How about that?
Isaac Lundestrom might just not be that good. But I will say though that like the reason why that line works is because each player kind of has their own complementary skill and it all just gels perfectly. I mean, Troy Terry, he just makes whatever line he's on better, to be honest. But it works especially well with Zegras because Zegras can actually read off of him and get into open space. And Terry will do the same for him. And then Henrique is just good at finding those soft areas and getting shots off. So it is pretty funny that the Ducks' best line in the last two games is the line comprised of guys that have either been the whipping boys of the coaching staff or in Zegras' case have just not been given a fair shake minutes wise.
Yeah. Shocking.
Almost as if this coaching staff is absolutely clueless. Wow.
Almost.
I mean, now they're coming to their senses, but it took a while.
It took over half the season.
That's the funny thing that I was saying during the game when we were doing that wasn't the watch on for that game, but that particular game, like that was always available to the Ducks, like that kind of game. Like these line compositions, it's not like the Ducks couldn't have done them earlier. It's not like they couldn't have played Jamie Drysdale earlier. It's not like, it's not like they had to scratch Troy Terry for like a couple weeks. Right.
I swear that Micah Blake McCurdy tweet that he did a couple years ago is evergreen. The one where he's like, an NHL franchise should pay me $1 million a year, and 5 times a year I would say no, don't do that, and I'd be worth the money. It's kind of true.
It 100% is. But kind of to circle back on this game on the whole, the Ducks actually put themselves in a hole. We haven't really talked about it, but they put themselves in a hole early on. Ryan Miller was not fantastic, I think, allowing 2 goals in the first 2 shots. Now, granted, some of it's not his fault. Yanni Hockenbaugh with a poor play on the first goal. And so can we briefly have a discussion? I mean, I'll put a ball in this game and then we'll have this discussion. Ducks ended up winning the game in overtime. They had a power play going into overtime, and Adam Henrique ended up scoring on a nice pass from Getzlaf.
Great one-timer.
Yeah, great one-timer. Really nice to see that go in. Really great cap on this game. But Can we have a discussion about Yanni Hakanpää?
This is your vendetta. This is actually your vendetta.
Here we go.
This is my vendetta.
Well, but before we do that, should we hear a word from our sponsor?
Yes,
Since we're about 40 minutes into the show.
Yes, we should. So, the curators at Bespoke Post have done it again this winter, and as we're now going into spring, an all-new lineup of essential box of awesome collections for guys, guaranteed to upgrade your life. Whether it's showcase pieces to level up your indoor hosting skills, or cozy threads for those blustery days, Bespoke Post only sends guys the best stuff every month, no matter what you're into. Box of Awesome has you covered from style and grooming goods to barware, cooking tools, and outdoor gear. Box of Awesome has awesome collections for every part of your life. So, Felix, what has been your favorite thing from Box of Awesome so far? From Bespoke Post.
That is a great question. So I actually got some awesome Bluetooth wireless earbuds they may remind you of AirPods a little bit, and I've been using those for my workouts. They have great sound quality. They stay in my ears when I'm working out, which, believe it or not, is not true for every headphone out there. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Bespoke Post. And I have the travel bag, which I understand you have as well. And I've been using that when I'm moving around. If I need to just throw stuff into a bag and get on the road, it's very, very, it looks classy. Like, it makes me look better. It makes me look like I'm actually going somewhere important, as opposed to usually just filling up like a backpack or something. I look more put together. I look more polished, and that's all because of Bespoke Post.
Yeah. And looking at kind of the different boxes that they have available on their website, the one that I'm legitimately just tempted to buy this thing straight up is, I mean, have either of you had a smoked cocktail before? I think, Felix, we discussed this last time. You have not. CJ, have you had a smoked cocktail?
Yeah, I have.
They are delicious, aren't they?
Oh yeah, smoked cocktails are great.
They have a cocktail smoking kit that they give you the lighter to go with the hickory things, and a little like glass thing that goes on top of it. So you basically light it all, put the glass on top of it, and it will smoke your cocktail all inside of it. I am legitimately tempted to just get this. They're not doing anything to make me say this. This is just something I want to get. But so to get started, though, everyone, take the quiz at boxofawesome.com. Your answers will help them pick the right box of awesome for you. They release new boxes every month across a ton of different categories. It's free to sign up, and you can skip a month or cancel anytime. Each box costs only $45 but has over $70 worth of gear inside. So you can get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter the code CTP at checkout. That's boxofawesome.com, code CTP for 20% off your first box. So thank you so much, Bespoke Post, for that.
So back to your vendetta against Yanni Hakanpää.
Just going right back at it.
Yeah, we're not wasting any time here.
All right.
I will say this just before you go. I want to give the people the facts, because I feel like you're gonna give your view, which we don't know how factual it'll be. I just want to point out that Yanni Hakanpää has the only thing he's really been good at this season has been suppressing shot quality against and shot volume against, but he's a complete drag on this team's offensive production generation when he's out there, to the point where it kind of just negates any sort of defensive upside that he brings. So that is at least my view. That's the statistical view. And I also feel like those defensive gifts that he has, that upside that he's shown, has kind of been fading recently as well.
And ding, ding, ding. There it is. Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, I was defending Hakanpää a little bit a couple weeks ago.
You were.
And
I believe. Hold on.
Did Felix bring receipts?
I'm feeling petty today.
Oh boy.
You are the one.
You're gonna misrepresent what I'm saying. I feel it.
No, I always represent fairly. You said that he could play on the power play. Is that fair to say?
I said that he could probably play on the second unit power play.
So in essence, you're saying he can play on the power play. That's what that means.
2 weeks ago, yeah. I don't believe that anymore.
Okay. We've shamed you out of that take.
Yes. Yeah, it was all you.
I'm pretty sure we shamed.
Remember, I don't watch the games. I'm just on my laptop looking at spreadsheets all day.
I'm pretty sure we shamed you out of that pretty quickly, actually, CJ.
Oh.
No, okay. So what I will
it's because
say,
you were trying to defend another podcast who said that. I think that's
was
you were being kind.
Yeah, exactly. You were being the great person
kind.
that you are. That's what it was.
Let's put it this way. The power play take was defending a little bit. Now, Hakanpää belonging in the NHL, I was serious about that. And at one point, he was leading the Ducks in goals above replacement, right? Now, he was never great offensively, but like up until 2 weeks ago, he was about break even replacement level offensively and solid defensively, which led to his pretty good numbers. The last 2 weeks, though, have been awful for Hakanpää, and I feel for him. You know, I want him to succeed. I think a lot of people want him to succeed. He's a guy who hasn't been in the
broadcast definitely wants him to succeed.
The Ducks broadcast. Oh my God,
Yanni Hakanpää fan club over there.
You'd think he's the next Pronger. So you'd think he was like the Finnish Pronger, according to the broadcast.
The thing is that narrative is coming from the Ducks, which gets parroted by the broadcast. So.
Exactly. And so I think that Hakanpää just had a really, really rough 2 weeks. I don't think anybody's really surprised on that, but I think it is at a point now where if you do have a Lindholm or a Manson come back, well, Lindholm's not coming back anytime soon, but Manson reportedly will be coming back here fairly shortly. He's got to be the odd man out, even amongst Larson. You know, I know Larson, we've talked about him, and I know you guys have talked about him to death, but Hakanpää, I think it's time to kind of move on from that.
No, hold on. Wait. Again, I'm gonna have to interject here.
I like how this was my vendetta, and I haven't actually said a word about Hakanpää yet.
We're blocking you. I'm coming on. I'm cutting you off.
We're basically just filibustering so that Jake will never actually get to say. We're gonna get to an hour, and Jake will still not have said.
You were the one who claimed vendetta, and are not letting.
I just want to say, before you go, I just want to say that I would still keep Hakanpää in the lineup over Larson.
Yeah, the only thing with Larson is he's left-handed, so the main it
doesn't matter. A right-handed, like anyone would be better than Jacob.
Remember, playing the side is overrated.
Fair.
Yes.
Well, here's my slight concern before I get to the Hakanpää conversation is that the Ducks are going to have Manson come back and they're going to take Drysdale out because Hakanpää is staying in the lineup and Larson. Well,
Drysdale's going back to the OHL. Like that's a given.
They shouldn't do that. But
he shouldn't go back.
No, there's no reason.
Yeah.
Oh, but the ELC. Oh.
Yeah.
What was that, Felix?
Yeah.
That was like an orc Lord of the Rings sound.
That was his attempt at an old hockey man. But real quick, I haven't said this on the main show yet, but years of service. Basically, Drysdale cannot play enough games for this to count as 1 year towards his 7 for UFA status. But back to Hakanpää. The main issue for Hakanpää, someone actually mentioned this to me on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, and I think it's a fair point, that a lot of these guys, like a Yanni Hakanpää, he has never played a full NHL season. And so he may have looked good in the first 20 games, but we haven't, and this is why we want to have a sample size, because he may burn out over time with the competition and playing the amount of games that come in an NHL season. And I think that's partially what we're seeing with his defensive side of the game. He was able to have a good 20 games, but I think maybe just the level of play, he's not up for it, and we aren't able to see him consistently do that as we're moving forward. And looking at the numbers, I mean, from the last 2 games, I know this because I had put it together in the takeaways article that's going to be coming out tomorrow. But he was the worst defenseman on the Ducks in expected goals against per 60 in the last 2 games, and had some major flubs that caused goals against. And it wasn't just those major flubs. There were a bunch of them outside of that. And so if he's a guy where all he's going to be doing or all he's out there for is defensive work because he doesn't give you anything offensively and almost negates all of his defensive positive play, if he's allowing the most expected goals against when he's on the ice, then something's off there and there's something going the wrong way. So if that can rebound, let's say that, and come back to the norm where he was previously, where essentially he's replacement level, I think that's valuable as a 6th defenseman, even if he's playing on his offside on the left side, or if they have someone else playing on their offside as a result of that. But I think the concept of people saying he's a top 4 defenseman, he's this nice surprise, he's a guy the Ducks need to look to resign. I think that these last 2 games,
3?
What?
2 to 3 million.
Oh, these last 2 games have shown that isn't necessarily the case, and I think that we probably are going to see a little bit more of this as we go down the home stretch here.
Yeah. So I think that
Was that enough for the vendetta?
I mean, that was actually more level-headed than I expected. I'm kind of disappointed, to be honest.
I am usually level-headed, I will say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, well, no, I was just gonna say that you've had a couple rants in the last couple weeks, and I thought that maybe this was gonna be another rant
No, there's no rant.
opportunity.
No rant. No rant.
Well,
Every once in a while, Jake likes to surprise us.
I
I feel
gotta
like
let loose sometimes,
I feel like there is a broader discussion to be had about the blue line that we might just not have time for here because we still have another game to talk about. I will say though that there are. I think Mahura should be in the lineup. I think that I know he has struggled a little bit as of late, but he is still like Josh Mahura on his worst day is at worst Jacob Larson. Like he there's no way he's worse than Jacob Larson is what I'm trying to say. And so why Larson is just untouchable in the lineup, whereas Mahura basically has a couple bad games and he goes back to the AHL. That is the part that I don't understand. And I mean, in a way, I mean, Dallas Aiken's loyalty to guys like Jacob Larson and Derek Grant is part of the reason why he's probably not going to be back as Ducks coach, whether it's next season or the season after. These are the guys that are sinking this team because you're just getting absolutely no value from those minutes whatsoever.
Here's something I will say on playing those guys. And this isn't really defending Eakins per se, but I think it's contextualizing these decisions a little bit. Almost every single NHL coach has these pylons that they stick to. Eakins isn't any like worse, I would say, in terms of playing these guys who are clearly bad, who we trust way more than he should. I think every single coach has that to an extent. Like even Boudreau when he was here, as much as we all love Boudreau, Boudreau did the same thing with a lot of like Boudreau did that with Nate Thompson constantly. But at the same time, that's not an excuse for it. Like we should be demanding better out of our
the thing is,
coaches.
it's visibly not working.
Also,
and you're right. It's visibly not working. All I'm
Yeah.
saying is that, like, look, Eakins isn't necessarily the black sheep of the coaching staff because he's doing this. The coaching staff, and there's so many issues. There's so many issues with the way coaching and player deployment is done in the NHL. I think most of us agree with that. I'm just kind of contextualizing that, hey, he's not much different than a whole lot of our coaches. That being said, though, we can demand better of him.
I mean, Nate Thompson is a little bit of a different player than Derek Grant. Also, I would argue that when he was on the Ducks, he was a better player that had more of a contribution to the Ducks than Derek Grant has to the Ducks. And I think that that has been kind of shown when you go back and look at numbers. And even if you look at the lineup construction under Boudreau, I mean, Nate Thompson wasn't necessarily on the fourth line. The fourth line had guys like Rickard Rakell at times. It had guys like Emerson Edom at times. It had guys like Yuri Sekach. And so it's not as if that he was set to this construction of a fourth line having to be, as Dallas Aikens has said, his grind line.
That's the thing with Aikens is that he has had he just hasn't shown any adaptability. Like he's really married to this view of the roster where you have to have a fourth line grind line, like Jake just said, and you have to have Jacob Larson on the roster. Like those are the things that he's stuck with. And like the games where he's gone away from that a little bit, the Ducks have looked better, shockingly. And including that night. I mean, if you look at the lineup that night, I mean, sure, Grant and Delorier were both in, but at least you had Heinen on that line, or I mean, at least you didn't have a full on just dud of a fourth line. So I don't know. Anyway, we need to move on from this topic though. Let's talk about last night's game. So another clunker from the Anaheim Ducks this season. They lose 5-1 to the Arizona Coyotes in a game that, I'm going to be honest, never felt super duper competitive. Am I wrong on that?
Do we need to have a conversation about Ryan Miller?
Well, so that is the thing I do want to mention is I think that the Ducks didn't start that terribly. I mean, and again, this is all contextual, right? This is all in the grading them on their own curve, which is not a good one. They didn't get that handily outplayed. They were outchanced, but it was 3-2. Shot attempts were 16-12 in favor of Arizona in the first period. The margin was pretty thin the entire way through, and they were let down by some defensive blunders from Jake's boy Yanni Hakanpää, and also just Ryan Miller is not good this season. Like, he's more than not good. He's awful this season. And I feel bad because by all accounts, he's an awesome teammate. He's been a great goalie his entire career. There's an argument for the Hall of Fame there, but he's just objectively been not good this season, and that is concerning.
Yeah, and I think we're really at the point here where, given last season, I think I was totally for the decision to sign him for one more year, especially given the Ducks' backup goalie situation. You had Stolars, who has had not great success up at the NHL and hadn't even been consistent up there. And while you're in a transitionary period, maybe you'd want Miller to go on one more time. But I think it's pretty clear that he's hit the age wall. I think it's pretty clear that he no longer really has it in him to play at an NHL level anymore. I think he's great in the room and he brings other benefits that way, but on the ice, he is no longer even a break-even value effect on the Ducks. It's pretty clear that this probably has to be it for him.
Well, the weird thing is that I don't even understand what happened, because you could say, yeah, it's because of age, but Ryan Miller's been really good throughout his 30s. Like it's not as if there was like a buildup to this. Now, he was declining, like he has declined a little bit in the last couple of seasons, but he's never just been flat out awful. And so this is kind of a new thing. And goalies don't really age. Like, goalie aging is weird. It's not really comparable to skater aging, because you can't point to like, oh, the guy got slower, or he can't keep up with the pace of the game. Like with Miller, I have a random take that maybe doesn't make any sense, but I think part of what's plaguing him this season is I think he's changed something in his style. Like he looks a lot more like he's really aggressive. He comes out really far, and he looks off his angle like all the time on straight on shots. And I also think he's gotten a smaller chest protector. Like, maybe it's just me, but he looks smaller in the net. Like, if you compare pictures of him from this year to previous years, he used to look bigger. Like, I'm pretty sure he has a new chest protector. I don't know to what degree
Felix, what
that
if he's in the
it.
best shape of his life, though?
Well, yeah, they always are, but I think whatever changes he made to his equipment, like, I actually think he should go back to what he had before. And this stuff matters for goalies, by the way.
We should mention, we haven't mentioned this yet actually on the show, John Gibson was put on IR.
Yeah.
This week going into the Colorado game, Anthony Stolars was called up on emergency conditions, which led to me kind of realizing the fact that John Gibson was probably hurt, and so he was put on IR. And,
which is awesome, right?
Yeah,
it's not as if it was avoidable at all to just run John Gibson into the ground yet again, was it?
It's
so
definitely
funny
not advisable.
Yeah,
it's so funny. Well, not funny. It's actually sad. It makes me want to cry. I don't know why I said that. Bob Murray, a couple of years ago, after what was it? I think it was after Carlisle got fired and Murray took over behind the bench. The exit interviews on the season. Bob Murray made the quote, "Good goaltending covers up a lot of the crap," right? And he's absolutely right. But when he tells the fan base that, and this again goes back to my whole thing of 50% of the things that come out of a general manager's mouth are lies, that they clearly either don't care or they don't have a plan to try and limit Gibson's workload, to try and round things out better, to try and make it so that they're not necessarily giving him a horrible workload. And I think part of that comes to the fact that Murray, I think, rightfully understands that goaltending is the biggest strength of this team, that John Gibson is probably the best player on this team, even if he hasn't been as good as he was a couple years ago. But at the same time, like he's so obsessed with trying to win, with trying to be competitive, that he has no choice but to go back on his word and basically ride Gibson into the ground, and he's backed himself into a corner.
Well, that's what I don't understand, though, is that, okay, yes, you want to win, but part of what allows you to win is a rested and healthy John Gibson, right? Like, you saw how great and out of this world good John Gibson was to start the year, and part of that was because he had a year off. He had almost an entire year off to just, heal, work some things out, right? Like, and so that's him at his very best. And wouldn't you want to have that John Gibson all the time? And so I'm just wondering, and to your point about there not being a plan, I think that's a great point, because who's calling the shots here? Like, is it John Gibson who just so desperately wants to play every game and no one is able to tell him no? Is it Dallas Aikens who, doesn't have a plan there or is just unwilling to play Ryan Miller? Is it just Bob Murray? Who is to blame here? I am very curious, because we don't really know, right? There's not a way of knowing who's calling that shot, but it's just frustrating because John Gibson is this team's premium asset. And if you can't find a way to maximize him in his prime, then you're doing your team a disservice. I mean, look, every team around the league, I mean, I think that you are seeing a shift to tandems and you are seeing a shift to finding ways to keep a starting goalie as fresh as possible. And look, I don't know. I mean, I know that people are really high on Sudarshan Maharaj, but I think they either need a new goalie coach or they need additional goalie coaches because whatever he's coaching up these guys, like Miller has fallen off a cliff and Gibson kind of fell off a cliff before he got hurt. So I think that there has to be a new voice there as well.
Potentially. One thing that I do want to mention on this is that I think that what the Ducks really need to be looking to do with all of this situation right now is, I mean, I think we can all agree that Ryan Miller looks like he's done. Like, if not midway through this season, then he's done after this season. Like,
I hate to say that he's done because he was good as of a year ago.
He was right. He was okay as of a year.
Well, he was like you could defensively start him.
Yes, but
right?
he's I mean, age comes for us all, and he's 40 years old now.
Yes, but the thing is, he was old the year before.
Yeah, but
what?
But every year it adds to that ability. It adds to that downturn. It adds to that aging curve. Like it starts to go down and down. There's a certain point in time where there's just a point of no return for these guys with age. And I think that may be what we're seeing with Ryan Miller. And I think
his numbers have taken a steady decline.
Yes.
Like that you could say, because in 1920, he was just below break even in GSAX. Mm-hmm. So sure. But he's just been unbelievably bad this year.
Yep.
Anyway.
And so go ahead, CJ.
And like I'll say too, that kind of happened with remember that kind of happened with Timu a little bit near the end of his career, right? Like he played the short season, scored 24 points in 46 games, which is that's good for, 50 points or so, still pretty good or whatever. But then the next season he fell off a cliff to 27 points. I think he's missed some time with injury. And at a certain point, if you play long enough, if you have that distinguished enough of a career and you keep going, you either retire on top, kind of like Scott Niedermayer did. You retire before that cliff comes for you, or at some point the cliff comes for you. That happened with Jagger with Jaromir Jagr, right?
He's still playing.
So
he's still playing.
He is, but no, I'm talking about at the NHL level. At the NHL level, Jagr hit the cliff. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility that that's exactly what's happened with Miller. I do think, Felix, that you do have a point that he's off his angle. That's something stylistically. I think that all factors into it, but I also think that age is also a huge part of it.
Does being older make him less able to stop straight on shots is my question.
I mean, it affects your read and reaction time.
Yeah, but anyway.
But I was going somewhere with it. So this is where I was going.
Okay.
I think we can agree that Ryan Miller is probably done after this year.
Well, yeah. So regardless of whether we agree or disagree on why he's bad, the fact is that he is, and he's a free agent, and it's just unlikely the Ducks are going to re-sign him.
So the Ducks need to, I think, at this point, see what they have in Anthony Stolarz.
Yes, and that is the baffling thing for me is that Dallas Aikens made a comment during the week that Stolarz wasn't going to get into the rotation, and this was pre-Gibson injury. But why is that? Why is it that you cannot play this guy? You sign him as a free agent. Don't you want to find out what you have? Because he could be your backup next season, especially given how bad Miller has been. Now, it doesn't help that I think Stolarz let in the first shot he faced on Saturday night. But,
after that, he was fine, though, honestly.
But he looked fine. And the thing is, for him, think about the kind of season he's had. He hasn't played anywhere. And he's been getting all of his reps, in practice. So, yeah, that first start could have been, was kind of expectedly shaky, at least in the first couple minutes, but he really settled in after that.
Yeah.
I think this lends credence to my whole point that I don't think the Ducks truly have a plan outside of Miller or Gibson.
For their goalies, yeah.
For their goalies. I think they signed Stolarz to be the San Diego guy right? To be the San Diego guy or to split time with Dostal down there, and for possibly him to come up as on an emergency basis and not to give him any.
The 3 goalie rule really screwed that up for them, I think.
I would agree. I would agree with that. But at the same time, again, they're at a point now where I think they just pinned all their hopes on Gibson and Miller. And given Miller's age and Gibson's history, potentially with being injured, and not even just the injury history, just his sheer workload over the last few years, I'm with you guys. I don't understand why they don't do it, but my guess is that they just didn't have a plan and they're so married to the idea of Gibson and Miller.
Well, what's confusing to me is also that, and this is something that we get asked about a lot as well with Cody Curran, is that like you signed this guy to a 2-year deal, right? They extended Stolarz for 2 years, and it's like, don't you want to use him at some point? Like, why did you sign this contract? It's a one-way deal. Like he's an NHL like player essentially. And it's the same thing with Cody Curran. You signed him to a 2-year deal, $1 million a year, and he's just going to rot on the taxi squad all year or in the AHL. Like it just feels like, why were these moves even made then? Or was it just to reach the roster limit? I don't even, I don't totally get it. And I think that maybe these moves were just made kind of because of COVID and with the weird season, and you want to have as many bodies as possible, this and that. But they signed Curran from Sweden. Like they had a move from the other side of the world to come over here, and I'm wondering if we'll ever see him in the lineup.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like he was the SHL MVP.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even some like scrub from the SHL. It was a star.
Like when they signed him, I figured he was probably going to play a little bit in the AHL and then work his way up to the NHL, because that felt like the trajectory. And look, we have no idea how good he is at this point, and I'm not saying that he will be good. I'm not like this
big booming
I'm
shot.
not the one. I'm not the one driving the bus there. But my point is,
big booming shot.
Look, like Jacob Larson has played his way out of a job. Find out what you have in Curran. Like that's what the rest of the season should be about. Find out what you have in these players. Find out who's staying, who's not for the following years.
Job battles.
Felix, you're absolutely right, and I think this whole conversation that we're having highlights the biggest issue that we and Ducks fans have with this team right now, is that there's very little logic going on with a lot of, or at least logic that we can understand going on with these roster construction.
Yeah, it's secret logic.
It's secret logic, but like there's no communication with the fan base. There's no apparent logical rhyme or reason that we can figure out. And we're basically just kind of being left to dangle out in the dark here to try and find, like, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to compete? Are they going to give up on it? Like, what is happening here? They don't have to come out and say, yo, guys, we suck. We're going to start tanking. Like, you don't do that. But you do this thing where you say, hey, you know what? We're not where we want to be. We want to focus on developing of our future and committing to our future so we can get back to being a hockey team. So there are going to be some changes. That's not a difficult thing to say. That's not a difficult strategy to put it behind there. Yeah. But the only possible strategy that any of us can really ever come up with for any of these moves is that the Ducks are a win now team, because that's the only thing that
we know about them,
that we know of publicly, right? And so I think that's just why so many people are so upset, why so many people are just kind of done with this team at this current point of time, is that nobody can understand what's going on.
Yeah, and like the Twitter eggs will tell you, oh, you just don't understand. Something's happened that you just
neither do they.
Like does Bob Murray like payroll these Twitter eggs that
to come after you specifically?
Like I get it.
Bob Murray spent a lot of money on a bot farm, and damn it, he's gonna get his money's worth.
Like where are these people coming from? Like who are they? Are they team employees that are? I don't know how much I should say about this, but like I have identified burners before.
You 100% have
of team employees. Like I have confirmed them, so it's not out of the question. But I do want to say
to close out this game.
I do want to say this, because we've been talking about the blue line a lot, and people are have been asking about it. Like Kevin Shattenkirk has not been that good this season. I think it's getting to that point where we should at least kind of let that into the narrative a little bit. Like he's been bad defensively.
Yes. I think defensively, yes.
He's been bad defensively. He hasn't been good on the power play. He has been good at driving offense, but his defensive woes do take away from that quite a bit, I would say.
They do.
Like he's still above break even overall,
yes.
but he's still like a positive value player, but it is kind of marginal at this point.
I don't think it's marginal. I think he does impact play in a positive way for the Ducks and does make the team better when he's on the ice from an offensive perspective. I think you are correct. His defensive play, and I think part of that is also I think it was better when he was with Hampus Lindholm as compared to trying to elevate some younger guys. I mean, that's going to happen. Yeah. I mean, Hampus Lindholm is one of the best defensive defensemen I think the Ducks have. And so that's really why. But
well, I just feel like, a lot of people have said all season long that they are frustrated with him. And I think that there was a point in time where that was like unfair to say that. But I think you can only see something happen so many times before there has to be like some credence to it. Right. And the fact that he takes all those penalties.
The penalties are an issue.
The fact that the fact that he gets caught in open ice so often, like it is, I think it's fair to say now that there is a bit of an issue there. Now, like you said, he's still a positive ad. His contract is not prohibitive. He's not this albatross, but I think we have to be honest here with how he's played.
No, that's fair. And I think if you want to criticize him defensively, I think for sure there are issues there. I think my only kind of pushback to you on that is I think some of the narrative about him is I think a bit overblown with him being this awful ad and the worst player on the team, and the fact that there's people saying that he should be put on the taxi squad. I mean, to me personally, he's been better for the Ducks overall than Yanni Hakanpää has.
But that's a low bar.
Fair, fair.
Hakanpää is a DH.
But I think kind of how you're discussing Kevin Shattenkirk is in a way.
I mean, maybe I'm underselling how good he's been offensively.
Yes.
Because it also depends where you look, because like some models will be much higher on him offensively than others will. Like if you compare evolving hockey to top down hockey, top down is a lot higher on him than evolving hockey is from
evolving hockey doesn't necessarily negate out shooting as part of it. So if there's a negative shooting impact on him, that is involved in the even strength offense.
So top down does correct for shooting more, and I think that he does look a lot better when you factor that in. Yeah, but he's still bad defensively in both.
And just because I have it up here, I do have the guard tables, the goals above replacement tables on Evolving Hockey right now. Kevin Shattenkirk currently ranks 9th on the Ducks in total GAR with 0.6 goals above replacement. So he's not much better than replacement, but he is positive. And it's actually kind of funny looking at this stuff. Like he's got it easily the best part of his whole guard component is the even strength offensive component, but he's actually not that great. It's only 1.5 goals above replacement on the even strength offense. So he's been solid offensively, but nothing really spectacular.
But I do think Evolving Hockey does underrate him a little bit offensively.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree.
So
anything else on last night's game? Because that's what we were talking about.
We should talk about the goal, because the goal is a really, really nice play for the Ducks.
Troy Terry is very good.
Troy Terry with a absolutely fantastic defensive play in his own zone to stick lift the Coyotes player, get the puck, move it up the ice, pass it up to, I believe it was Cam Fowler, who dished it to Trevor Zegras, who is able to make a fantastic little backhand feed to Troy Terry, who's able to feed it across the net, and Adam Henrique is going to bury it. So just a really nice transition play, and I think it highlights a lot of kind of the way the Ducks should be looking to play. I mean, it was highlighting essentially being this more transition style of team, especially with those three on the ice. I mean, that's where Zegras and Terry thrive, and Terry started the whole thing, and it showed how you can be good defensively. I mean, we talked about this in our text messages, but how you can be good defensively without necessarily being a big physical guy. A lot of people still get into my mentions on Troy Terry saying he's small, he's not going to survive in the league because he's smaller, he doesn't play physical enough. Eric Stevens even, I think, in his real time had mentioned he'd like to see Troy Terry get bigger. He's still too small. It's like, he's 23 years old. There's only a certain amount of size he's going to add on as a professional athlete.
And Troy Terry isn't small. Like if you see him like in person, he's got some muscle on him. Like
he's 6 foot flat. Like he's not huge, but he's not tiny either.
Yeah. I just feel like he's as strong as he needs to be. And yeah, sure, he could benefit from being a little stronger, but I think he's really good at defending. Like when he has the puck, he's good at fending off defenders. He's good on his edges. He's strong. He's stable. The narratives around Terry always confuse me, because I just think people have this view of what he should be, and because he doesn't meet those, we are basically just going to reverse justify and look for the holes in his game. Like, I'm not saying he's a perfect player. I think he's great, but I don't think he's a perfect player. And I think part of what drives the perception on him is that he has the puck a lot. Like, when he is out there, the Ducks tend to possess the puck. And guys who possess the puck will also turn it over more than guys who don't. They are exposing themselves to more, quote unquote mistakes because of that fact. And so because you see that happen more often, you might be led to the conclusion that, oh, this guy is a turnover machine, or that he lacks confidence. That's another one you hear about him, when in fact, those things are happening because the rest of his process is so solid that he's getting those opportunities, getting more bites at the apple.
I hate the turnover stat there, because you want to know who is among the top 5 in turnovers every single year.
Lay it on me.
Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid is always near the top of the turnover leaderboard.
Yeah, what's going on with Connor McDavid's
Nathan
confidence?
Nathan McKinnon is at the top of a lot of these player boards. I hate this. It's like, for those of you who are in baseball, right? Like, if you look at the all-time ground into double play leaderboards in baseball, it's a lot of these legends like Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Albert Pujols and stuff like that. And it's only because they get so many opportunities to hit with runners on base, they ground into that. Same thing with hockey. If you're giving the puck a lot, it's because you have the puck a lot. And so it's kind of a misleading stat. By the way, I did just want to say, guess who's leading the Ducks in goals above replacement at the current moment?
Troy Terry.
Yep, with 4.3. He is second place is Rickard Rakell at 3.7. Terry has been very good lately.
Yeah. I mean, he has been, and CJ with the baseball reference. That's why we bring him on
brand.
Because we don't get enough baseball references in here.
Shohei Ohtani is just making me feel tingly feelings. I'm in that mode right now.
Is he the best player in baseball? Is it too early for that?
Still too early. Mike Trout still has that.
Tatis? Oh, Mike Trout. Yeah, I don't know anything about baseball.
You definitely don't.
I know nothing about baseball.
We know this. But yeah. So that
did I just out myself as a baseball idiot?
100%. Real. But on this play also, obviously, we just talked about how great Troy Terry is. Trevor Zegras with the absolutely beautiful feed, though. Little backhand no look pass to set up Terry. And I mean, this is what Trevor Zegras can do. I mean, he has the playmaking ability. I kind of had wondered. It seemed like he was, I don't know if gripping his stick is the right way to put it, but he wanted to get that first goal so badly, right? And so I was wondering if once he got that first goal, if we were going to see him essentially setting up more guys on the rush than he was previously. And I think he was still doing it. Maybe this is me overblowing this narrative that I'm coming up in my head.
I don't think that he was really gunning for his first goal. Like, he doesn't even really shoot the puck that much.
True.
No.
Fair enough.
I think you're off there.
Never mind. I'll back off it completely.
Jake destroyed.
I wasn't that hot on it, but I was thinking it out as I was going along, guys. Jake
can be talked down. It is actually
it is very possible.
Well, so we're about an hour and 20 minutes into this, so I think we should just go into some questions to start wrapping things up a little bit.
Yeah, so for anyone out there watching the recorded version of the show on YouTube, yes, we're on YouTube. Check us out at youtube.com/crashthepond if you want to help us out. One thing we're trying to do more is get more subscribers on YouTube. I see all the views, and I see that we have more viewers than we do have subscribers on YouTube. So if you're watching the show and enjoy it there, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell if you want to get notified when the videos go up. They'll go up the night of, after we are done recording this on Twitch. And then obviously your favorite podcast services. But the real fun thing is our Twitch stream. We do it live each and every Sunday at 8 p.m. and do Twitch at twitch.tv/crashthepond. And if you want to help support the show in a way that is completely free if you have Amazon Prime, or if you don't, you can still support the show by subscribing. Just like Literate Gal, our good friend Bonnie did, resub for 30 months in a row. Shouts to Bonnie.
Bonnie, you're the MVP.
Fist pump for Bonnie.
And then also ODog81 had subscribed also, and this is their first time subscribing. So thank you so much. And yes, you do have to hit that subscribe button after 30 days to stay subscribed.
And there is another perk now of subscribing to us on Twitch.
Oh, we'll do some Twitch Call of Duty stream. CJ will be joining us soon.
If you want to hear me scream and rage and curse because I'm terrible at the game, if you want to see me suck at something,
so here's
outside
the thing.
of this podcast, I recommend it.
Here's the thing. I gotta get CJ up to speed so that he's better than you, so it's funnier.
Oh, he's probably already better than me.
That's fair.
Like, this is a very
I've been playing a little bit. I'm not good, but I'm not bad either.
I am the Sam Steele, Jacob Larson, Derek Grant of our team.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
we established that you were Derek Grant on the last stream.
Yeah, that is my role. The best, I bleed shot attempts against.
The best moment that happened on that stream was I somehow, some way bought you back with guys all around me, and I'm running and I'm in the middle of a field, and I clipped it and threw it onto Twitter, and it's clipped on our Twitch. So please go watch it if you want to find it. And you just hear Felix saying, "I'm coming in hot." And then you can legitimately on screen see his body just come down without pulling shoot and just hit the ground. And he's like, shit. And I have to go res him.
Yeah.
It's a great moment. It's a great moment.
Yeah. I mean, I am like Derek Grant because I'll run out into the field and we start getting shot at. So there's my shot attempt against.
And
just
you fire at other people so that they can fire a bunch back. Just like taking one shot attempt to get a 4 and then getting 100 against.
This is all just one big analogy to analytics, basically.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So let's get into some questions here. So Not Real Never Was says, I don't want to get you guys off topic, but what do you all make of Craig Custance' piece in The Athletic?
So I'm surprised we haven't actually talked about this yet. Oh, sorry.
We figured we would get questions about it, honestly.
Yeah.
So where an NHL executive mentioned the Lucic and Bennett from Henrique and Milano. That wasn't the deal I think either of you were thinking I was going to mention. But what do you guys make of that? I mean, just let me lay it out there. Let me find the trade specifically. So here's what it was. Flames sent Sam Bennett and Milan Lucic to the Ducks for Adam Henrique and Sonny Milano. Basically, this was a really good article by Craig Custance where he took some deals from fans, NHL execs, things like that, and then got an NHL executive to weigh in on the deal. And this was actually texted to Craig Custance by an NHL executive. And for reference, Lucic is owned $5.25 million through the 22-23 season, and Henrique has 3 more seasons at $5.825 million. So Lucic is cheaper, and I believe is 1 year shorter than Henrique. And so basically, the Ducks would be sending Milano and Henrique and getting Bennett, who is potentially just a rental, and the cheaper guy back. The Ducks could also then flip Sam Bennett later for a pick, is the logic there. So what was your guys' thoughts of that?
Yeah, I love that because that's just so, like, I love the level of detail in this thought. Like this feels really fleshed out.
Yeah.
I just don't see the Ducks ever doing something like this. Like, this actually sounds like, even though the names involved,
it's cutting salary.
Even though the names involved are really unsavory, like the executive does make some kind of an argument there. And I just don't think the Ducks view their moves ever in like 2 to 3 steps, right? They don't view them as, okay, we're making this move now to be able to make this move after, or flip a guy to then get a pick for him. That's just not how this team seems to operate. And so I just don't think the Ducks would do this.
One thing briefly,
they would make this trade and then just keep Bennett.
Yeah, probably.
There's no way they flip Bennett.
Yeah, like that's the funny thing about this. And like with Sonny Milano, I just wouldn't want to include him in that deal because like right now he is dealing with a pretty bad head injury, but he's still a guy with potential, and I think giving up on him I guess in a way if you turn, so this would be Andrew Cogliano for Devon Shore for Sonny Milano. And if you then use Milano to get Bennett, who gets you a first round or like a second round pick, let's just say you're able to get a second for Bennett. So Cogliano for a second is essentially the final outcome there, which wouldn't be terrible. I mean, I'd rather find out to see what Milano
I should
can
mention
do.
that Sam Bennett is an RFA at the end of his deal, and the NHL exec thought he wouldn't be qualified. Was the key thing there, which is why he would become a UFA and why it would be essentially a rental deal. And one other thing brought up in the Twitch chat, which I think is a good point on this, is Milan Lucic, even though his cap hit is lower, he's also making less money over than his cap hit over the next 3 years. And so he's going to be like making a decent amount less than Adam Henrique will. So, I mean, maybe that is simply it. It's shedding money.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, it could definitely be it.
Real quick,
my biggest...
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, like, if you include Milano in that, like, I get why you include Milano in that deal, but that's just another one of those moves where you're selling low on a guy who still has potential.
Yep.
Like, I don't think any of us are really saying that Sonny Milano is destined to be a top line winger. Does he have skills for that potentially? Yeah, he could potentially do that, but realistically, right now, especially considered when he's injured, and just given the fact that the coaching staff seems to have no patience for, again, guys who aren't necessarily that great defensively but can shoot the puck, it's another one of those trades. Will it make a lot of difference in the long run to the Ducks? Not really.
If they get a second round pick out of it, then yes.
If they get a second round pick, maybe, yeah. And I like how you link that back to Cogliano.
But isolating it just to the players involved here, I agree with you. It's inconsequential.
They could lose Milano. Yeah. They could lose Milano also in the expansion draft. So.
I mean, Bennett is better than Milano right now. Just the problem to me there is you're flipping Henrique, and I understand his deal is what it is, but
Henrique's
I feel like
a better player than
you're still you're moving out the best player in the deal, and you're not really getting any kind of commensurate value in return, which is the issue.
And that's the thing that I think we have to remind people is that as much as we talk about wanting to trade Adam Henrique, that's really solely because of his salary. Like, Adam Henrique is a good player.
He's fine.
We all agree that he's one of the best players on the Ducks. That's not saying a ton, but no. He's a solid hockey player. The problem is that the Ducks shouldn't be paying his salary for the production that he brings in a time when they should be rebuilding. That's our part. It's not it's not us bagging on him as a player. And I think you're right, Felix, is that if you are going to get rid of Henrique, even with that contract, given the value that he brings to this team, you should be able to get something more consequential back, preferably.
Like Henrique will make the Flames a lot better. Well, a lot might be a stretch, but he will make them better. I did want to bring up quickly, just because we didn't get to this, but the 31 thoughts bit on Rakell this week.
Well, let me just really briefly say this. Also from the article, this isn't a question, and when we get to questions, we'll just blitz through the rest of them. We'll try to get to as many as we can, but I see there's a lot in there. Twitch chat has been thriving tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining in and tuning in with us. But also, another trade that was in this was Anaheim Ducks would send Rickard Rakell to the Leafs for a first-round pick, Timothy Liljegren, and Alex Kerfoot, and the Ducks would retain $300K to essentially make the salaries completely match between Rakell and Kerfoot. And exec number one said, that's a good one. I think Toronto says yes, but it's a no for Anaheim because you have the wrong prospect. People talk a lot about Liljegren, but Rasmus Sandin and Nick Robertson. I think if you have Sandin or Robertson, you have a deal. Liljegren is the third of those three. People have concerns on Liljegren. I actually got a lot of pushback from Leafs fans today, but I mean, that'll happen when you talk about the Maple Leafs.
Welcome to Leafs Nation.
This is essentially in line with the deal we've talked about. Robertson or Amirov for plus a first plus salary dump for Rakell. And I mean, it shows that we're kind of on point with our evaluation of that deal.
Yeah, I mean, I love the line from exec number 2 in this when he says this is reasonable. I don't think it helps Anaheim as much as if they just sought out a pure futures package, but they have said that they want a player of similar age back in the deal. It's like, yeah, the Ducks are doing this the wrong way. They're going about this all wrong. But given their absurd parameters, this makes sense. I mean, I actually think that I'm at the point where as long as the Ducks get a first round pick, there isn't really a bad move for Rakell. I do think that if this would be a little low on the value scale. I'm not that high on Liljegren, but I will say that I just don't really understand the fixation for that kind of mid-20s player that they want. It is a bit confusing.
I think that even if you include Liljegren in the deal, Liljegren still has some upside to him, but you're right. There have been some questions and some holes in his games that I think have developed recently. But even if you do get him, when we talked about previously that the minimum that you should be asking for Rakell is a first and a B+ prospect, I think that first plus Liljegren is that kind of bare minimum. You should get more than that. You should get better than that, especially given Rakell's contract. But if you do get it, if that's the deal, and I don't necessarily think that's going to be the deal, but if that is the deal, then it's certainly not a loss. I think it's a fine deal. You just probably didn't maximize your value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Jake, do you want to... I just wanted to bring up the 31 thoughts here.
Yeah, go for it. And then we'll move on to some
so
questions.
This is what Elliot Friedman wrote this week. Things can always change, but the price is also high for Anaheim's Rickard Rakell. Calgary wouldn't pay it, so meaning there's probably been some discussions there. And I'm not sure there's a match with Toronto. The Ducks, I think, want young players with a little more of an NHL track record for him. In this job, you try to understand the personalities you're dealing with. The one thing I've learned about GM Bob Murray is he can think, not ready to do this, not ready to do this, and then decide, okay, I'm ready. Almost catching people by surprise. Let's see where it goes with Rakell. There was another thing about the Ducks, but I just want to quickly say on this one that I just don't get it. I don't understand why this is so hard. Is this just the Ducks kind of trying to float things out to drive up the price? Like, I don't know what it is, but this should be like a layup of a trade for the Ducks. Trade Rickard Rakell, get a first round pick, get a really good prospect, and maybe get a second, or, just go for that all futures package and just get it over with. I don't understand why they are making this so difficult.
Especially after this week, build around Zegras, build around Drysdale.
Now, if this is just the Ducks publicly trying to play hardball with the rest of the league, then that's fine. Because of course, they should be trying to get the highest return that they possibly can. I just think that while that is probably what they're doing, they're trying to force this return that just doesn't make sense to me. And that actually makes it harder to execute a deal. I think it's a lot easier to just trade Rakell to another team and not have to worry about getting a roster player back.
So I think that understanding how Bob Murray operates is important here. Now, I'm working off of information that's still like 2 or 3 years old, and he could be different by now, but there was somebody, and I'm completely blanking on who it was. There was an insider. It may have been Elliot Friedman. It may have been somebody else who said that Bob Murray is one of the few GMs in the league who still tries to win trades. Like he tries to get the better and fleece GMs, right? And most of the time, I think now what you want to do is if you can take advantage and fleece a GM, sure, that's fantastic, but that shouldn't be your goal. Your goal should be to have a trade that works out that is mutually beneficial for both teams. You see where there's a match and you make the deal, right? If indeed Bob Murray is still of the opinion that he needs to try and win trades, then I think that explains a lot about what they're taking the approach for here with Rakell and with a lot of other deals here. And I think that's a horrible way, and especially in today's NHL, that's how you basically get to a situation where you are now, where you don't deal players that you should be dealing.
Yeah, and then the second thought here was that I heard the Ducks were asked about Max Jones, but that's a no-go. He's been very good. We will see where things go with talented Troy Terry. So, again, the ambiguity of the reporting around Troy Terry from Elliot Friedman has been interesting because there's never been anything concrete of, either the team is shopping him or the player wants out. It's just been that something could happen there. And I'm guessing that there's just been some discord between the team and the player. I think that it's been ridiculous the way he's been handled, and I'm sure that Terry or his agent or whoever has probably voiced that to the team, and it's made its way out. I don't think he's getting traded, though. I don't think the Ducks actually want to trade him. I just think that, and especially now because of how well he's playing, I do find it somewhat interesting that they're just totally unwilling to trade Max Jones. I mean, he's been good this year, arguably the Ducks' best youngster just in terms of driving play, but is he like an untouchable? That I'm not super confident about.
Yeah,
and I don't think Jones should be an untouchable, but he's also the kind of guy that I think I would only move at this stage if you got a truly good kind of overpaid deal. Again, we've talked about this so much that we constantly harp on like the younger players, even if they necessarily haven't, been lighting up the world or anything like that. That's not the type of player that you want to be looking to deal right now unless you get a blowaway offer.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Jones is he just doesn't really produce offensively. He's just kind of he's just a play driver, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we get through these questions?
Yes. Let's blitz through them. This one's only going to be for me. Also, by the way, not sure. I think it's really him, but we've got Jay Fresh in our Twitch chat, so shouts to him. Great work, awesome work, very much important to everything we do. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Go support his Patreon. Also, really great work there. So NJ Devils fan 68 said, "What did you think of the Thunder Rosa match from AEW Dynamite?" So the main event was a lights out match between Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, and oh boy, was it amazing. Best match on Dynamite. I won't go into it too much, but that match was exactly what you want to see from professional wrestling. It was a mix of storytelling, long-term storytelling between the feud of those two, using in-ring work, using violence, using everything to tell just a fantastic story, and they showed exactly what the women's division is going to be all about, and it put the women's division in AEW on the map, and it was the best match in Dynamite history. Just going there. Felix loved this. So here we go. The Honey Badger asked,
I'm in physical pain from that.
The Honey Badger said, "Who's the front runner for the first overall pick?" Because it came out, Luke Hughes got hurt, and he is now going to be out for a little bit of time.
I'm going to be honest. I've been honest about this. I have not been researching the draft, and I really should. I know that Jake though is. You're the one that's been studying the most, so why don't you tell us?
I mean, overall, it seems like everyone...
William Eklund?
It seems like everyone has Owen Power at first overall. I'm actually pretty high on William Eklund. His numbers over in Europe are fantastic. I also think a player who I've been a little bit lower on, but there was a fantastic article in EP Ringside this week by Mitch Brown, I believe, who broke down, because there's 3 guys who are going to go in the top 5 probably from Michigan this upcoming season in Kent Johnson, Owen Power, and Matty Beniers. And Matty Beniers is a guy I was kind of lower on, honestly, because he's kind of profiled out as a guy that basically drove play but didn't have elite skill. Really had a great motor on, different things like that. But Mitch Brown did some fantastic work tracking transition play and expected goals and expected assists. And a lot of people are higher on a guy like Kent Johnson simply because of the offensive ability and skill level, and that kind of bears itself out in expected goals and expected assists. But the one thing on Matty Beniers is he drives play and also gets expected goals. He is just a guy that is a monster. Like, is he? Do you draft him first overall though? I think it's potential. You potentially do. If he's a guy that can become a Jonathan Taves-like player, an Anze Kopitar-like player in this draft, this might be a draft where you actually kind of draft for floor. Yes. Yes.
Which is really weird to say and kind of makes me feel icky. But
I will tell you here that, like, I personally am a big Matty Beniers fan, and admittedly, I'm mostly a big fan of him doing something that you shouldn't be doing and looking at his World Juniors performance, right? Like, I loved him at the World Juniors. Like, I got freaky Matt Barzal vibes from him. Honestly, with some of like his motor and like his nose for the net and stuff like that. Like, I saw, and Matt Barzal, for those of you who know me, is one of my favorite younger players in the league right now. But I'm not entirely sure if he's a first overall pick right now. I think he's definitely.
But the thing is, you could probably have that question about a bunch of guys in this draft.
You could. There's no, like, here's the thing. The Owen Power thing was, Owen Power was kind of the consensus overall number 1 first pick heading into this season. That's not really the case anymore. If you talk to a lot of prospect evaluators, it's really opened up, and now there's probably like 3, 4, maybe if you stretch it, you could even have 5 guys who are in the running for first overall.
Jake's pet theory is that the Ducks should draft Jesper Wallstedt.
Jesper Wallstedt looks to be the best goalie of the last 5-10 years in this draft,
and then trade Gibson. Yeah, I mean, I don't hate that. I kind of hate.
I don't either.
I kind of hate that you draft a goalie and hope it works out, because that is always a bit of a gamble. But I think, the Ducks should probably be looking to move Gibson at some point. He doesn't really fit their current timeline, and they could get a ton of value for him.
Yeah, and so moving on to the next question, Anime Holics D94 said, "Question: Were these Coyote games the most Coyotes games the most Ducks games ever? I mean, the first they have a good game where the baby Ducks shine and give fans hope for the future, and then immediately in the next game the team falls on its face. I wasn't even surprised. One thing on those games, I mean, at 5-on-5 they were pretty even. It was really just goaltending that let them down."
Yeah, like that's the thing, is this kind of game, the Saturday night's game, is a bit of a perception skewer, because the score will tell you one thing, but then when you look at the shots, the chances, that will tell you something a little different. Now, I don't think the Ducks played all that well, but they didn't didn't play as bad as the score would indicate. And Miller, like I said, has just been awful. But it does kind of show though that like in these series, it does always feel like the Ducks are not the team that is making the key adjustment, or the team that, as the series goes on, gets the second or potentially third game, seems to get better. And that might be more of a coaching thing. But I actually, I don't know. I the more I've thought about it, I don't think last night's game was all that bad. And then of course, like the funny thing is that for the game previous to that on Thursday, I don't think the Ducks had this awesome game either. They were just really good in concentrated stretches, and that allowed them to pull away with it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, looking at a lot of the numbers, I'll tell you right now, like nobody broke 50% on either shot attempts or expected goals last game at even strength. Like I would say it wasn't the worst game that the Ducks have played, but it was definitely down there.
No, they didn't play that well, but
no
goaltending.
Yeah.
Blame Miller.
Yeah.
Blame Millsy.
Yeah. Miller had like a -2 goals saved above expected.
Yeah.
Like it was awful.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So let's go to this question. Ginger Wolf asks, is Zegras Henrique Terry the first line now? And if Henrique is moved, who ends up taking his place on that line, whether that is Zegras moving in center and you pop in a left winger, or who pops in at center?
Well, okay. So yes and yes is my answer. The Ducks should move Zegras to center. I think that's where he'll end up being anyway. He should just start getting reps there now. I think that it is their first line. I think it's their best offensive line. I think for a while, the Rakell, Comtois, Getzlaf line appeared to be the first line. And we talked about that. I don't even remember when. We've recorded like 4 times this week. But I mean, the Comtois is in a bit of a doghouse situation right now with Dallas Eakins. He got benched again yesterday. He's been benched in the previous game, so I'm not really 100% sure what's going on there. I do disagree with benching him in general, just because I don't know how much benchings really accomplish, and B, I mean, especially yesterday, the Ducks were down 4-0, and you're benching your leading scorer. Like maybe, just maybe, if you're still looking to get back into the game, that is a guy who will help you do that. Now, Comtois has been so bad defensively, though, that I think it is kind of warranted to show a little discipline there. But I just don't know if benching him is necessarily the way to go about it. But yeah, if they were to trade Henrique, I would be curious to see Getzlaf between Terry and Zegras. If you are still going to leave Zegras on the wing, just because Getzlaf, I think this season, the people are harping on him. The production maybe hasn't been there, but he's actually been really good at driving play. Like he's been a really solid 5-on-5 center. And that's encouraging because look, a couple of years ago, Getzlaf was real bad and he was dealing with an injury, had a bit of an uptick last year. And now this season, really outside of production, he's kind of right back to where he was, like more of a 2018 range. So that is encouraging, especially if the Ducks are going to re-sign him this summer. So I think putting a guy like that who's strong at 5-on-5 to kind of maybe, do whatever you can to mitigate Zegras' developing skills there, while also being able to be the benefactor of all the playmaking that's going on between Terry and Zegras, that would just be a really fun line to me.
Yep.
Although I can already hear, like Brian Hayward or someone saying, well, who's going to shoot on that line? Who's going to be the one to take the shot? Because they're just going to pass infinitely to each other. And
I want to see them.
Zegras has shown that he can shoot when he wants to.
I just want to see them pass infinitely just to piss Brian Hayward off now. So let's blitz through. Let's go through 2 or 3 more questions right here. Odog81 says, what's Dostal's current situation? When will he be ready for the NHL, and when will he become the number 1? I think probably in 2 years is when you're going to start to see him making some NHL appearances. As for when he's going to be ready for the NHL to become number 1, I don't know about that. That's a tougher question.
Yeah, good luck predicting things with goalies, but I do think that it just depends what the Ducks are going to do with Gibson. Like if the Ducks deem maybe by the end of this year that, Gibson is a guy that maybe they're thinking about moving on from, then Dostal's timeline gets accelerated. But he probably realistically at least 1 more year in the AHL, I would say, which isn't a bad thing.
Yep. And
yeah, I would agree with that. And keep in mind, look at what's happening now with Ryan Miller, right? This has got to be the last year of Ryan Miller. And you have to look at what's going into next year. Assuming you hang on to Gibson going into next year, Do you want Dostal to start taking backup duties? Do you want him to do that? Do you want Stolars to take backup duties? Like, there's a lot of questions, and when Dostal, I think, starts even just getting NHL time, I think that trying to predict the whole number one thing is way out of the question here at this point.
So disrespectful to Ole Eriksson. Not even
I had
mentioning
such high
him.
hopes for him.
Not even mentioning him. How dare you?
He's still got some time, but man,
he's an ECHLer. It's okay to say.
But at the end of the day, what you're looking at is when Dostal actually starts getting NHL time is entirely dependent on what the Ducks' plan with Gibson is, and I think this offseason is going to be pretty telling with that.
Yep.
So let's go to this one. I know I see all the questions, but I think this is a good one to kind of end with because we've done a lot of chatter about Toronto. We've talked about Robertson. We've talked about Amirov. We've talked about all those different guys. Yeah, I'm going with the collective we.
I feel like you have definitely
called out.
But JAH1722 says, why isn't Carolina talked about being in on Rakell as much? They've been looking for a top 6 right-handed forward for a while. And so, yes, I think that the Ducks could also be talking to Carolina. And I think that, I mean, the difficult thing is you got to ask for Jarvis. I think if you're looking, like, that's a big ask, but you got to do your best to try to get that.
Well, I mean, look, Jarvis was picked, 3 slots ahead of Amirov, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's not like, it's not unreasonable. Man, if the Ducks got Seth Jarvis, that would be huge for them.
That would be a home run.
Like, I was so high on him in the draft, like, so many good things in his game. And if you only got Jarvis for Rakell, like, that's already a win in my book.
Yep.
Of course, they could probably get more. I
have a hypothetical here. Let's say the Canes are a match, but the Canes just do not want to go Jarvis, right? That's just too much for them.
It's probably unlikely that they would agree
It probably is.
Yeah.
What would you say if Ryan Suzuki became the talk here?
Well, time to fire up hockey prospecting because I don't have a good answer for that.
I mean, that's Ryan go-to.
Yeah, right. I mean, Ryan Suzuki, I like Ryan Suzuki a lot. I do. I think over the last year, he hasn't been as good as he was previously. He's currently playing right now with the Chicago Wolves in the AHL. But that being said, Ryan Suzuki is kind of considered to be a little bit like a discount version of his brother. Right. Of
I love
Nick
how
Suzuki.
when you have a brother in hockey, your only comp is your brother.
Instantly going to be compared to him.
That's it. That's
going to be Luke Hughes and Quinn Hughes for a while.
Just looking at Ryan Suzuki's probabilities here right now. So let's see, he was drafted in 2019, so he'd be in his draft plus 2. He's at 17% star probability and 57% NHLer, which, I mean, that's fine, but it seems like a bit of a flyer. Whereas I feel like obviously Jarvis. We know Jarvis is better, but Suzuki is a bit.
We all know that.
Suzuki is a bit too much of a flyer to me.
Suzuki was drafted 28th overall, also.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Like even if you got like a Robertson or an Amirov, I mean that would be, I think, still better than Suzuki. But if you get Suzuki a first and another young roster player, that's still a good haul. Like that's not the worst. Yeah. I guess I'm not super excited about him, but I am basing a lot of this just purely on numbers.
I love Rakell to the Canes. Like, to me, Rakell is a total Eric Tulsky player.
Well,
like, he screams Eric Tulsky.
I want him on the Leafs.
Well, he also just
fair.
He also helps address something that they're not good at, which is like
scoring,
converting
finishing
chances into goals.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the Leafs, that would be my ideal destination for him. Just him with well, it's funny that we're saying Rakell helps their finishing when he's been absolutely snake bitten this year.
I think you put him with better talent, he's gonna finish.
Well, him with Austin Matthews would be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So just as an FYI, I'm looking at the Carolina Hurricanes prospect pool ranking per Scott Wheeler, and they have Seth Jarvis as their first prospect, and then Ryan Suzuki as their second, Jake Bean as their third, Noel Gunler as their fourth.
And that sounds about right.
Yeah,
it sounds about right. I mean, I'm not really high on that many of those guys. I know like that prospect people really love Gunler. But like it's just after Jarvis, those are basically all flyers to me.
Yeah, agreed. So that I think that's kind of why we focused on the Leafs a little bit more, because I think getting Jarvis is going to be harder than getting Robertson or Amirov.
Well, also if you're the Canes, it's just, I mean, I guess if you're just so all in on this year's team, it makes sense.
I think the Leafs should be all in on their team this year, because they will they will never have another opportunity with this division. Their path to the cup will
and they
never
have the
be
prospect
this easy.
depth too. They have the prospect depth to withstand that.
And just so people understand the comparison, like Seth Jarvis, so in Ryan Suzuki's draft year, he was a 12% star probability. Seth Jarvis is 43% in his draft year. So
Whew.
he gonna be good. But yeah, the thing with the Leafs is just like, my issue with the Leafs in that package is I just don't think that, like, the Ducks should be after Rodion Amirov. That is the guy that they should be targeting, but I don't think that they will. And so then who are they going to get back from them?
Well,
I'm not that excited about Robertson like you are.
I think a lot of people are high on Robertson.
I do want to give this juicy detail about why Jake wants
this
Nick
is
Robertson.
Not why. This just adds.
This
adds to it.
It doesn't add. It doesn't add.
It adds from a narrative,
so
a fun narrative perspective.
Nick Robertson's like sibling went to USC.
Oh, you went that way. No, that wasn't even part of it. No, it's more so the fact that he's from Arcadia. He was born and raised in Arcadia.
No, but he, you mentioned to me that some of his family went to USC.
It's
just so perfectly on brand for you. I guess I should be a little higher on Robertson though, just overall as a player. I mean, I'm looking at his numbers here, and he is really good. Although Amirov has not been that good this year in the KHL, which is kind of interesting, or the MHL, I guess. Or no, he's in the KHL.
He was in the KHL, and I believe Amirov is going to be coming over this summer from all reports. But basically, to put a bow on that, and we'll end the pod with that. The biggest thing there for the Ducks is getting. I think that deal kind of checks both boxes, because they're getting the young the young player that they should be getting in Robertson, and then also the first round pick. And I guess Bob Murray can hide behind getting Kerfoot, is getting his 23 to 27-year-old player when Kerfoot was basically to make the salary work. But here's the thing. I don't even care if it's Kerfoot. Do anyone. I don't care. Do something to make the salary work.
Well, the big thing is the pick on Robertson.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
that's the deal.
That's the value.
Honestly, let's be real here. Bob would get Kerfoot and be like, this is the main part of the deal.
Yeah, but we would know that's not really the case, though. That would be...
It actually could be the case.
It could be the case. Given what we know and what kind of Friedman has reported and other people have been reported, I would not be surprised if that's the way he went.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah, Jake just
maybe.
I mean,
CJ was the one at the start of this that said,
Yanni Hockenpop, PPQB.
Don't believe everything that comes out of a general manager's mouth, or specifically Bob Murray's mouth.
Well, I mean, Alex Kerfoot makes the Ducks better, and he's not old. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the bar.
Actually, I don't even know if he makes them better. I'm looking at his stats right now, and
I'm gonna say that feels more like a lateral move to me than anything.
I've got questions. Well, he's better than Sam Steele, so ergo, he's better than Sam Steele, and he's better than Derek Grant.
That's not that hard at this point.
Well, no, but like but this is the whole thing I'm trying to say, is that like the Ducks have so many players who are just complete negatives. Who, even if you bring in a player who's not that good and is flawed, you're still actually going to get better just because you're moving out other just complete negatives. Although we don't even know that. Are we going to see a Kerfoot Grant Steele line? Just go all in?
No, Delorier will still be playing.
I might jump off a cliff.
Delorier on the first line. I did see a question. Is Jones a younger, better?
Oh,
Delorier?
yeah. I forgot about that one. Sorry. There's been a lot of questions in there.
Jones is better than Delorier.
Yeah, Jones.
I mean, Delorier was drafted as a defenseman.
Yeah.
So,
I almost see Jones as like a better skating Nick Ritchie. With less penalties, like play driving guy who maybe doesn't finish much.
I don't know if he's as good at driving play as Nick Ritchie, but I get see where you're going with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nick Ritchie is a more talented player overall. He's just not as like
you're gonna make a lot of Ducks fans angry with that take. I'm just gonna tell you right now. I think you're right.
They know our opinion on Richie.
That's my role.
Yeah.
That's my role in this world. It seems is to piss off Ducks fans. But
Right.
Nick Ritchie, the thing is, the eye test just isn't kind to Ritchie because he doesn't like, you know, especially early in his career, not a great skater. You know, doesn't have like those wow moments with the puck. But he just gets it done. Like whatever he does, it translates. And with Max Jones, it's almost the opposite, or at least it was up until now, where he looks good out there. Like he's a good skater, you know, maybe a little choppy, but he's got good hands. And now it is translating into those underlying numbers. So we'll see.
Yep. So I think that's gonna do it for us tonight. So want to get into the plugs, Felix?
Wow, what a show! We are an hour 56 in. And it feels
Thanks
like
for hanging out with us, everyone.
It feels like it just started.
Yeah,
it honestly does.
We've had a lot of people in our Twitch chat tonight, so thank you everyone for tuning in live.
Yeah, we still have 2 other things we could have talked about that we didn't. So
yeah,
should we go 3 hours?
We had a whole main topic lined up that we just basically scrapped because we didn't have time.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you get the 3 of us together. Okay, folks. Well, hey, thanks everybody for listening. You know, the Twitch chat tonight was awesome. I was able to monitor that now that I have a better computer. So that's cool. If you're a fan of this show, if you enjoy what we do here, there are definitely a few ways that you can support us. So to me, the biggest one, the one where you get the most value, is our Patreon page. That's at patreon.com/crashthepond. Few different tiers there of support. So for $1 a month, you get access to our patron-only Discord chat, and that's basically where you get to hang out with fellow diehard Ducks fans. It's really become a place where, you know, I'll go to. It's my favorite place to talk hockey. There's always people in there chatting, it seems. I mean, I won't be in there, and I'll check it, and there'll have been a conversation raging for the last 2 hours about some trade idea or
some awful food takes.
Mainly coming from Jake.
On the awful
that was not me yesterday. That was not me yesterday. There were some awful ones yesterday.
But, you know, in a world where the internet can be so toxic and, you know, like social media, Twitter can be so toxic, I am happy to report that our Discord chat is not that. It's the complete opposite. It's wholesome, and everybody's just there to have a good time. And that's for $1 a month. $1. Now, for $5, you get access to that same chat, and you also get access to 2 bonus episodes a month. So of course we do our weekly show here on Sunday nights, but we also record 2 extra shows where we'll get just kind of deeper dives into different topics. So for example, yesterday morning, Jake and I recorded a pod where we talked about, first off, just Jamie Drysdale and just kind of what made him so good to start. And we did a little power rankings of the NHL. So, and we've also done shows where CJ has come on and we've talked about like The Mandalorian.
Oh, great episode.
Yeah, that was basically just 30 minutes of Jake just talking.
Oh, it was great. It was fantastic. It was fantastic.
And but so yeah, so if you enjoy kind of the banter of this show, I think that you're really well served there at that $5 tier. Now for $15 a month. Now this is a big ask, I understand, but hear me out. You get the Discord chat, you get the 2 bonus episodes, and you also get to watch and tune in to our watch alongs. So twice a month, we do a live broadcast of a Ducks game. We try to schedule them as far in advance as possible. So like, for example, this week we did a watch along of the reverse retro night, and it was a lot of fun. So, you know, if you're kind of sick of the commentary that you usually get from the Ducks broadcast or just traditional broadcasts, well, we give you a little bit of a different flavor, more stats, more kind of nitty gritty stuff. And also sometimes it's just us kind of shooting the breeze a little bit. It's a different take on it, but I think you'll enjoy it. And that's for $15 a month. All of that at patreon.com/crashthepond. Now, of course, if you don't want to spend any money, that's totally fine. You can leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you do leave us a review there, we will make sure to read it on the show. I don't think we've got any new ones this week to go over. And if you're not on Apple, make sure to check us out on Spotify, wherever you do get your podcasts. We are also on YouTube, youtube.com/crashthepond. So if you want to see the video version of the show, you can see the Twitch video. And Jake will upload that after each recording, and make sure you're subscribing there and turning on your notifications. Now, you may see here if you're watching on the video version, but we are wearing t-shirts. Crash the Pond t-shirts. Yes, folks. Get a good look. Get a good look at those shirts. Oh yeah, we're full modeling going on here on the show. We got CJ and Jake showing the back. That's great. So we've got t-shirts. They've got our beautiful Crash the Pond crest on them with the Honda Center arches, palm trees, hockey sticks, just everything that we love and hold dear to our hearts. We've got a couple of different versions. White, which has got the orange version of the logo. Orange t-shirt also has the orange version. And my personal favorite, the one that I'm wearing, black with the eggplant and jade version.
So the eggplant also comes in white and mint.
Mint
Green as an option.
Mint. Okay, so that's at
that's
at crashthepond.com/shop. And there's also hoodies. So, it's still a little chilly here in SoCal. We're not quite at summertime yet. It does dip into the 50s at night, so make sure you're warm. Get yourself a hoodie. Most of our listeners are in SoCal, so I'm okay with targeting it there. But hey, for our listeners over in Europe or up in the north in Canada, hey, a hoodie couldn't hurt there. But that'll probably be more like your base layer, I would imagine.
We've got some Animeholics who's in our Twitch chat is in Finland, one of our longtime listeners of the show from I think way back in the Mixlr days, and someone who helps monitor our Discord chat and mod it. So
legend.
Yes. Yes, we have people all over, all the way from Germany to Finland to Australia to New Zealand, all over the world listening to us.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy actually. But yeah, so get yourself some merch. That's at crashthepond.com/shop. Hey, once the Ducks let fans in again, which could actually be coming up soon. There's talk of that happening before the season ends. You could go to Ducks games wearing a Crash the Pond t-shirt. How cool would that be? Probably the hoodie because of how freaking cold Honda Center gets. If we're being honest here.
Be a walking advertisement for us. You want to.
Let people know.
Exactly.
And also, we've got articles going up at crashthepond.com. So after each Ducks series, we post 5 takeaways from that series or game. So Jake has his going up tomorrow. Make sure to check that out. I'm sure it'll be really good and interesting and not have any inaccuracies, which is always what we strive for. Make sure to check us out.
So what you're saying is you're going to be editing it, right, Felix?
I guess I have to, huh? Make sure to check us out on social media at Crash the Pond on Twitter. Search Crash the Pond on Facebook. CJ is on Twitter at CJ Woodling. Jake is on Twitter at Reindeer Games 91. And I'm on Twitter at Felix_Sicard. So, whoa, what a show, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. Enjoy Bavarian Crepes Day tomorrow or today when you're listening.
Bring it back.
We will talk to you. And we will talk to you at the next show. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.